Welcome to Smoke Signals, everyone. I'm Matt Montgomery, along with head football coach and AD Wayne Coleman. Fighting Indians kicked off the season at Tomato Bowl last week, Coach. You know, I hear you talking to your team all the time about football games aren't really won as much as they are lost. And that seemed to be the situation last week at Tomato Bowl with Crandall.
Yeah, it happens. When you've got a close ball game, you're waiting to see which team's going to make the mistake. We made a couple mistakes there, especially in the second half. Ended up costing us.
You know, even though you had the turnovers and you had the two safeties within that 3-minute time span that we'll talk more about in a minute, you still, it was a one-score game in the last little bit before they got that last score.
Yeah, I think we really are a better team than them. I think they executed better. They did a great job of handling field position. His decision to punt the ball, at midfield on 4th and 4 and pin us down, great decision by him. They played the field position game really well in the second half.
It's one of the most cliche talking points in football is special teams, and we got to win field position. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened the other night.
Yeah, and we knew we were young in some areas in special teams, and really, I know people don't think about this, but you have 11 guys on each special teams unit, but there are only 1 or 2 guys on each special teams unit that are the pivotal players. And we've got some youth in those positions, and those kids are going to get better, and I'm not worried about them at all. We're getting them extra practice reps every day, so we've got some maturity to come there. Mm-hmm. But it's something that's easily fixable.
You jumped out to a 12-0 lead, and things were really looking good. And then that space of 3 minutes where Crandall won field position, they had you pinned deep, and boy, they took advantage of it with not just one safety, but 2 safeties. Very unusual in a football game.
Yeah, it's kind of, the safety deal is really kind of behind the scenes thing. You don't know this, and we were not trying to get safeties. But at that particular time, our punter was already injured. So punting out of the end zone with a backup punter was not anything we were looking forward to. So actually sacrificing the 2 points and then sacrificing the 2 points again, when you're fixing to have to punt out of your own end zone twice with a backup punter, 4 points isn't that bad of a trade-off.
No, it isn't, and especially the way your defense was playing. They played pretty well, and of course, total offense, we talked about this in your post-game interview. You had more yards, you ran more offensive plays, you did what you needed to do offensively. It's just those turnovers and field position that really cost you the game.
Yeah, no doubt. And with the game, looking back at it, and there's 4 minutes left in the game, and it's a 6-point game, after all the mistakes we had made, to be in that position, with a chance to win the game, really I think is more of a reflection of how good we can be. Than what the final score ended up showing.
Yeah, I was talking to your offensive coordinator, Josh Moore, the other day at practice, and he said, it came down to 5 plays. And people don't realize in a football game when there's 120, 130 plays, sometimes that's all it comes down to is 4 or 5 plays, and that's why I know you preach to your kids, next play, you got to focus.
Yeah, no matter how bad the last play was or how great the last play was, you have to keep putting good play on top of good play on top of good play, and avoid the really bad plays. And a lot of people think, and kids especially, you watch all the highlight clips and you see these great catches NFL players make, or great throws, or great kick returns. Great plays are great to watch, but great plays aren't what win the game. Making the average play over and over and over again the way you're supposed to do it is what wins a football game.
And not making mistakes.
That's exactly what we're asking them to do.
Well, there were a lot of highlights in the game last week against Crandall. Let's take a look at some of those for Jacksonville. Coach, here's Crandall was on a really good drive here, and you got the turnover.
Yeah, great job by Clayton there, coming up and setting the edge and forcing the turnover.
Clayton had a really good game from his corner position. Now here's a huge play. The freshman, Carmelo Cleburne, 95 yards from Clater.
Pretty good first varsity football catch for that kid. I think he's got a few more good plays in him.
3 catches for 118 yards, not a bad debut for that freshman. Now here's Patrick Clater, and I know you want to get involved more in the run, and here's a great one here.
Patrick is going to definitely have to run the ball for us some this year. You can tell how big and strong he's gotten there. He's going to be a load to tackle.
Here's one of your defensive leaders, Casey Kennedy and Latrell Rivers with a play.
Yeah, they got back there to the mesh point, and their number 7 there was a stud, and it takes more than one guy to tackle him.
There's a slant route to Rivers for the score from 7.
Great play there by 2 seniors. We actually ran the same play the play before, and they didn't execute it. And Patrick said, "Run it again, Coach. We'll get it."
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, I mean, just a little bit off on the first one,
Yeah.
came right back to the well.
Yeah, and they know. I mean, they know they've got to execute that on the first try, and but they know they've played the game enough to know, Coach, just do it again. Give us one more chance. We'll execute.
What'd you take away from this game?
You always, between game 1 and 2, after that first game, you see weaknesses that you did not know you had. So obviously we had some in the special teams, and we've addressed those, and I think we're going to be better at those this week. And there's little things behind the scene you don't want to give away that just surprise you, that when you go back and you see a play made, you're like, what were you thinking on that? And the kid will tell you, and you're like, the thought would have never crossed your mind. But you can't, I mean, it's like you're having to coach every little detail, and you know what they say when you assume something. And sometimes we assume these kids know things that we haven't taught them.
Yep.
And kids these days don't watch as much football on television as we did growing up.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah, and so the things that us old timers know about football, and we knew when we were 18 years old, these guys don't know, because they've got a lot more going on out there. That, you know, society, the
video games,
Twitter. They got a lot of distractions. So we've got a lot of small things we've got to teach them. And but I can tell you this: there was not a lack of effort. Okay, there was not a lack of confidence. Our kids played with confidence. They played hard, and those are 2 things that we can't teach them. We can teach them all the little things that they messed up on. We can't teach effort. They have to have that in their heart, and they did a great job.
And one last thing, Coach, and we'll move on to talking about this week's opponent, Cleburne. But there were situations in that game the other night. It was the first game that just don't happen all the time. They're hard to simulate in practice.
Yeah.
You know, the 40-second rule on the kickoff, and your punter gets hurt, and this guy's out right here, like on special teams. Some of those things are hard to simulate.
Yeah, your first game where you start having a few injuries here and there, and now then you've got substitutions on the special teams, and the kids aren't in that mode of, it is very hard to simulate what injury is going to happen in the game.
Exactly, that's what you said.
And so when you do simulate it in practice, what you don't simulate is the guy that replaced the injured guy getting injured. And then now you've gone to a kid, throwing a kid in there that has never done that job. So there's lots of factors that go into that.
Yeah.
But all those things, we talk about to the kids about it all the time, how all these obstacles will make us better, not just better football players, but better men. And we have to overcome those things.
This week it's Cleburne. The Yellow Jackets come to Tomato Bowl, and Coach, they played one of your District 9 5A rivals, Hallsville. That was a 2-point game until the very end, and it was 27-25 Cleburne, and then Cleburne pulled away with a couple of scores. This is a good Cleburne team. That this is probably their best team they've had in about 5 years. They believe. Yeah,
they're loaded with seniors, kids that this is Coach's 4th year there. So this is his first group he had as freshman, and they've held them together. And those kids have come through the system. They feel very optimistic about this group. They're looking to make a playoff run this year, and it's something that we knew that's going in when we scheduled the game. But we wanted to make sure we had a competitive non-district schedule.
The 3-year starter coming back at quarterback, Gunner is his first name. It's a cool name, so I can't remember his last name yet. We'll know it Friday night. And at number 5, Cleo, he scored 5 touchdowns last week, 288 total yards for Cleburne. So he's a cat that you got to stop. This
is a kid that slam dunks the basketball with 2 hands over his head, gets in the squat rack, squats 615 pounds. He can. They put him out wide at wide receiver. They throw him deep balls for touchdowns. They put him in the backfield and hand him the ball off on power run game. He's a great football player.
Talk about what Cleburne does offensively. You mentioned him. They move him around obviously a lot. Shotgun spread, run the ball. What do they do?
Yeah, shotgun. Lots of exotic formations. Force you to make a lot of adjustments defensively. They'll be in double squeeze sets where you've got to bring your secondary down and set the edge on the corners. Then they'll go empty backfields. lots of things for our kids to have to be able to line up to.
Besides Carthage, do you know anybody that gets under center anymore? I mean, Pleasant Grove maybe.
Pleasant Grove and Carthage.
Yeah, they play this week, by the way.
Yeah, they do.
1 versus 2.
That's right.
So defensively, Cleburne, they gave up some points to Hallsville last week. Hallsville had a pretty big offensive game. How will you attack Cleburne?
They're going to, the flavor of high school defense is force everyone to throw the football. And everyone loads the box and says you're not going to run the ball and beat us running the football. So they're probably going to make us throw the football. That's what they did to Hallsville. And Hallsville had success. They threw for 350 yards. And like you said, it was a 2-point game late in the game. So I would not be surprised if Cleburne came out and said the same thing to us and said, you're going to have to beat us throwing the ball. That's they just won a game doing that. So
and that's what Crandall did to you. I mean, you started off with that first couple of drives really were solid, mixing the run and the pass, and then they just loaded it up.
Yeah, they did, and they forced us to throw the ball more than we wanted to. You know, we've said all along coming into the season we want to establish the run. You've got to make a decision philosophically. Are you going to establish the run at the point at the expense of, okay, we're going to sacrifice our spread offense and just get into double tight, 3-back, Pleasant Grove football, and you will run the ball that way because you can't throw the ball that way.
All right.
Or are you going to tell yourself the best chance for our kids to be successful is to stay in the spread, be good enough to throw the football and win, but also have a desire and intention to run the ball to win. And we want to go into the game establishing the run, but if they're going to force Jacksonville to throw the football, we want our kids ready to be able to do that. And we did a good job of that the other night.
You had 8 guys catch a pass last week. 8 different people.
And that doesn't happen everywhere in every Texas town. We had 8 different kids catch a football. We've got good skill position players in Jacksonville.
Coach, I think Kenny Kennedy's defense played well last week. They were put in some tough situations. But you had confidence in them because you had some real leaders in Bryson Haywood and Casey Kennedy on defense, and I thought some of the kids stepped up and played well.
It's our best our defense has played probably in 2 years, I thought. And they were playing against some really skilled players. So and against an up-tempo offense. So they did some really good things, and I'm just excited to see them continue to get better every week.
What are the keys to the game to get the win against Cleburne?
Don't beat yourself.
Yeah.
It's really simple. I hate to say that, but we're playing at home. We have the advantage of they're having to make a long drive. We should be the team that doesn't make the mistakes.
Coach, you always talk about the difference in week 1 and week 2. What are you looking for this week in those differerences? What do you want to see happen this week to where you feel like, oh, we grew?
Yeah, I think people are going to watch the kicking game and say, wow, we really got, how'd you get that much better in one week? Well, you identify your weaknesses, you focus on them, and you improve in those areas. And then I think we'll take care of the ball better. I think we put our quarterback maybe in a couple situations where he just wasn't ready to make the throw that we needed to be made, but I think he's going to be ready this week.
Jacksonville versus Cleburne this Friday night. Don't forget, fans, you can stream the game, see it live action at jhs-sports.com. Find us on our YouTube channel. We'll be there as well, of course, on Facebook as well. For head coach Wayne Coleman, I'm Matt Montgomery. We'll see you next time right here on Smoke Signals.